So last couple of things. The Black Album, which we barely even talked about, biggest album of the SoundScan era.
Right.
So many hits. I remember when they did everybody does the thing where you celebrate an album, you play it start to finish. They played the Black Album backwards because it's like, if you do that, all the hits are at the end of the set and you're still in it,
Right.
finishing with Inner Sandman. Another
Right.
brilliant, Lars, the set list master. What do you remember about the Black Album and kind of its impact and its arrival? Because for me, like you were talking about how Metallica was ours. And, another unique thing about our age is that the Black Album hit when I was a junior in high school, and
Right.
Nevermind hit when I was a senior in high school. And it was such a
Right.
weird moment at the end of the high school years to all of a sudden jocks and cheerleaders are into Metallica, and then they were like into punk the next year. Like, it was
Right.
weird.
And you're just like,
yeah. I also remember kids talking to me that hadn't talked to me since elementary school because they're like, oh, wait, he knows about this stuff.
It was a very strange couple years. Because not only did you have that, but you had Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
It was kind of that gap. They were like the stopgap band, like they had opened for the Clash of the Titans tour. Right. They went and they took that and they went and opened for Van Halen for quite a while. And then I think that experience was the experience that influenced them to make Dirt, because it's two such polar opposite albums,
Yeah.
That's a whole other fucking podcast though.
Yeah.
For me, I was so shocked by the Black Album at first. Obviously I was one of those kids that I was expecting something more like And Justice for All, And I can remember listening to Sandman because it was fucking everywhere. I can remember we waited and taped it off of the radio on KGGO played it, which was the biggest radio station in town, but it was the oldies station. And we couldn't believe they were going to fucking play Metallica. They're going to play what? They're going to play Metallica? And they were going to play it at 3:00. So we had our tapes, our tape fucking players ready, and we taped it. I remember we drove around and we must have listened to that thing. We wore the tapes out.
It was like when you had the record and pause on at the same time. Absolutely. And then unpause.
Then you hit unpause to get that clear. You don't get the pop in there. Yeah. It's a clean break and then done. And just because, and you're hoping that they don't talk at the end of the fucking, he's like, God damn it, you ruined it. It was crazy, dude. Like that. In retrospect, we were blown away by the single, but we were expecting more from the album, and it has grown on me over the years, to the point where I can listen to it now and I appreciate that album just as much as I appreciate the first 4 albums.
Yeah,
same. It was just you could see the evolution, and maybe that's maturity, because we were young and we were fucking dicks, back then. It's like, this doesn't sound like fucking Creepy Death, or anything like that. It was, it was one of those things where it was different and we didn't know how to feel about different at the time, especially for a band like this. And then the more attention they got, the less they felt like ours.
Yeah.
Like they were being taken from us. And I think that's why there was such an anti-Metallica thing for a while amongst us as metal fans. Like I never turned my back on them, but I definitely looked for other things, because it didn't seem as special and like specifically ours, but that was just me being a kid, like
for sure.
They were my, they were one of my favorite bands. So I was going to judge them as such. And, but it wasn't until I got a little older that I really went back and I started listening to that album again. And I was like, fuck, man, this thing is really good. Like, and not even the singles, because I mean, those singles got played ad nauseum, like they were fucking everywhere. Um, and I mean, Holier Than Thou is my favorite song on that album. Struggle Within, Held Up.
I love Of
Wolf
Wolf and Man.
was, yeah, Wolf and Man is it's such a great riff.
And
It's
dude,
like
when
we were
Newstead
playing
was
it
in the
sounds
band and he's doing those backup vocals on Of Wolf and
right.
Man, it's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's killing it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really, really cool. I think that once you put that in perspective with where they were going, it all makes sense. Like that was the missing piece, you know, like, and they've earned every drop of their success, you know?
Yeah. My retroactive viewpoint, because yeah, like you said, we were kids, is that
Right.
they were challenging us. And that's something I personally invite from artists that I love. Like I want to be challenged by their stuff. You know, if I want to hear the old record's still there. Like challenge me, you know, keep your identity, but challenge me. And they were like the kings of that. You know, they've done that every step of the way and been like, you know, we could just stay the course and play it safe, but we're gonna like keep fucking with everyone, you know, and doing what we want. You know, and it was like in the 90s, you know, I feel like they continued to do that, where it's like, they loved Alice in Chains, they loved Soundgarden, they went back to Thin Lizzy and Zeppelin, and I remember one thing I would say to my friends in the 90s when people were like, oh, Metallica cut their hair, the first thing I'd always say would be, so did you. So did I. You know what I mean? I'm like, we cut our hair too. Like they're supposed to be frozen, you know?
Yeah. You want to look like Uriah Heep? Like, I mean, what do you want? Like, what do you want from them? Like, they're staying current with them, not only with themselves, but with, you know, the state of everything that was going on. And it's like that they shaved their heads or anything like that. I mean, they had hair, you know, they were a little more, I don't think that's the thing. We weren't used to seeing Metallica be so stylish, you know? I can remember watching the video for, what was the first single off Load?
Until It Sleeps.
Yes. I can remember watching that and just very, you know, Foldy Army, just basically like, what the hell is going on here? You know, like they've got eyeliner and like, and even though I had loved bands that wore makeup and did this and did that, it was Metallica. It was so different than what I was used to. And then you realize it's like, these are grown men, man. They're expanding. They're, you know, they've earned the right to be able to, you know, seek out other forms of creativity, you know. It doesn't mean I do agree with it, but I, you know, in retrospect, I respected it because now I've done that myself in my own career. And, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, you know, but I've never gotten the amount of scrutiny that Slipknot or that, you know, Metallica has. It's, you know, imagine putting yourself into that, you know, that kind of, you know, magnifying glass, and how would you deal with it? And I thought they did pretty well.
Absolutely. And when you're the biggest, you're the most paid attention to. One thing I always say about them is like, even for different fans that abandon ship in different eras for whatever reason, every time they do something, everyone's still paying attention.
Everybody's coming back.
My Facebook feed is always like, did you see this Metallica? You hear this Metallica? You know, it's like, it's still this universal, like, I was never like a sports person. And I realized at some point over the years, like, oh, this is like people that love sports, where they're like, the Chicago Bears is my team, but like only in like 1980, whatever, when like this was the coach and this guy, you know, it's like, oh, you love it, but
they don't care about the current team. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You got your opinions though, but you still always love it.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was the last thing I was going to ask you about. You mentioned you went right to Holier Than Thou as your favorite song from the Black Album, which explains why you chose that. I think one of the things I was most impressed by, and I think this is something obviously you can relate to as prolific of an artist as you are, as someone who, you know, you and Clown and your whole team, how you run everything. And I was amazed by how secret Metallica was able to keep this Blacklist project, considering how many high profile artists such as yourself are involved, how much everyone's on Instagram and whatever, and you know, The fact that there
Right.
wasn't some bass player in some band that was like, I'm in the studio doing this thing for Metallica. Like, how was it presented to you? And I mean, is this like being in a Marvel movie where everyone's just like, you can't tell anyone what you're doing? Or is it just kind of
Well,
understood that you won't?
it wasn't like that until Miley Cyrus almost blew it for all of us in her fucking Rolling Stone interview. You know, I mean, listen, I have a big mouth too, and I understand that
So does
sometimes
everybody, you know? Yeah.
shit gets away from you.
Yeah.
But they told us right out of the gate, like, keep this on the down low. And then when she did that, they sent us fucking things that we had to sign, like NDAs, and we're like, fine. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Like, nobody can keep a fucking secret anymore, man. It's so stupid.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is I remember it got spun pretty quickly into she was doing a whole Metallica album herself, and that became the headline. You know,
which that it's shudder to think of that fucking thing. But I mean, whatever. Don't listen to me, I'm a fucking asshole. But I mean, it's listen. I don't want to dogpile on that because
no, of course not.
It wasn't the point of that. The point was that I was hit. I mean, the cool thing was that I was considered in the first place, you know, like,
of course,
I was one of those names that they hit up and they were like, would you be into doing it? And the cool thing was it wasn't Slipknot or Stone Sour. Like, they reached out to me to do it, which to me, I would have jumped at either of those, but the fact that they got to me to do it felt really cool, you know, like that made me feel really good about how they felt about what I've done, you know, with my career. So I mean, obviously I was like, hell yeah. And I was like, if Holier Than Thou is still open, that's the one I want to do, you know.
And they were like, actually, they're all still open because there's 50 of you.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it was that many bands doing it. And then I saw the list and I was like, well, this is quite a list to be a part of, you know? So not only to be asked to do something and then have them, they loved my version and included it on the, you know, the blacklist, but then to see that I was, you know, on this list of all of these incredible names, man, that was a head trip in itself because I didn't know anybody else who was on it besides Miley, you know, and it felt really cool to kind of get that recognition and to see myself put in that group, you know, and to know that I had done my little part to you know, show respect and show my love for it. It was rad.
Yeah, man, that was the exact thing I was going to say was that it's awesome enough that they asked you to be part of it in any capacity. But then when you look at that list and you see how eclectic it is and how diverse it is and how, like, you know, it's all these like high caliber, you know, it's everything from like pitchfork cred stuff to, you know what I mean? Like that it's not just the, like, if, you know, a metal magazine put it together or something and it would be kind of a predictable lineup, which that would be just as cool. There's plenty of that out there. That's cool.
Well, and that really has happened, you know, like, yeah, I mean, that's happened in the past many times, you know.
Right.
The cool thing about Metallica is that this shows just what an influence they've been globally at this point. I mean, you span so many different genres. One of the first times I really hung out with them, this will put it all in perspective. I was backstage. This was 2002, so we were touring with Stone Sour at the time, and Metallica was headlining these festivals, and who's the hip hop guy who did Pimp My Ride?
Exhibit.
Exhibit was on there as well, and he and one of his co-MCs, we were sitting there talking with Metallica. It was me and the guys in Stone Sour. We were sitting talking Metallica, and Exhibit and one of his MCs came up, and they were so blown away that it was Metallica, man. Like they just wanted to say hi, and the guy stopped and like totally cool about it. And that's when I really saw just how much they've influenced so many people through so many different genres, man. I mean, and it felt cool because it's like, oh man, it wasn't just us. It spoke to so many different people in so many different cultures, colors, countries. I mean, everything. And that's what the Blacklist really represents, is something that I saw 19 years ago and really made me love Metallica even more because of that. And I mean, it's to this day, I mean, they are our Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Black Sabbath, all rolled into one. And we were lucky enough to have them, you know, and we still have them.
Yeah, man. Well said. Yeah, I always say Guns N' Roses is our Rolling Stones and Metallica is our everybody else.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong.
Well, dude, thank you. And that was so well put. And you know what? And it also brings it full circle with the Black Album, because like for all of our discomfort as teenagers of like, this thing that's ours is now everybody's.
Right.
Now we can really look at it and see it and be like, oh, it's everybody's, in a way that's so much more meaningful.
Right.
We could have understood then. You know?
Yeah. And it's cool because it represented everything that we wanted for Metallica. But then when we got it, like, we didn't realize that it meant that they were going to belong to everybody. I remember we was sitting there going, God, man, I just wish Metallica would just rule the earth. I wish Metallica was the biggest thing on the fucking planet. Right. And then they become that, and you're like, hey, what? You know, it's like, be careful what you wish for. But you know what? At the same time, like, I wouldn't have wished it on a better band. I mean,
exactly,
they deserved all of it.
And a band that's given back so much to everything that's come in there. You know, the whole idea of the big wave raising all ships, like,
right, exactly.
They're still doing that for all of us, you know. So, well, Corey, thank you so much for doing this, man. I've been super looking forward to it. I'm glad we were able to make it happen. Thanks for letting me be part of this whole Knotfest thing. It's been a bunch of fun.
It's all good.
So yeah, I happen to be, I do the movie show every week, and it was literally like right when we got the news, I was going on minutes later, so, and there were a bunch of people checking out the stream, and we just spent the whole time, watching a bunch of videos of Joey and doing the behind the scenes when he was the Roadrunner team captain. There's like some really cool stuff from that. And it was just, it felt like a responsibility to be even anywhere near adjacent, connected to your camp and represent that day. So I was proud to do it. And thanks, man. Hope to talk to you again soon.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.